Einstein actually said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It's the same in health. What you do in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, it compounds. Your brain fully develops around 25. Age 30, your brain begins to atrophy. We've got around 87 billion neurons in the human brain, and they begin to die off. We can actually accelerate that brain aging process through sleep deprivation, through alcohol, through smoking.
How do you make your brain better?
The best things you can do to start to have a better performing brain, you have to start with
What's up, Well Builders? Today, I have a neurophysiologist. If you don't know what that is, me neither. That's why I'm so excited to have Louisa Nicola on. And we're going to talk about how to keep your brain young, how to have more cognition, and how to increase your performance. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I had to use a lot of new words I've never used before.
Yeah, so many people don't really know neurophysiologist. It's just a subspecialty of neurology. So specifically, I go into surgery with you've got the anesthesiologist, you've got the neurosurgeon, and I'll be the middleman, basically testing the nerves within surgery, dropping little electrodes in the brain and the spinal cord to ensure that the patient isn't paralyzed, but specifically looking at things, such as myasthenia gravis or demyelinating disorders like MS, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how doctors get into such niche down things, because you don't grow up this is what I want to do.
Yeah. It takes so much time to really hone in on that specific area. I just knew during my undergraduate degree, when I was around 19 years old, we went into a cadaver lab, because I did exercise physiology as an undergraduate degree and teaching, but we had to go into a cadaver lab, and I saw the brain and we saw every organ system, and I just thought it was such an interesting structure, and that's when I just fell in love with it. I always say it was my first love. But if you really understand the brain, and obviously I work now, I have a practice that works with elite performers, so we're pretty much looking and working with executives and high-level athletes, which I know that you were at one point in your life.
Yeah, I like to think I'm still both, but we'll see. We'll see, because we were talking before about just vision exercises and, these things damaging your brain, like alcohol and drugs and everything else. So I'm curious what you're seeing in these high-level performers.
Yeah, so, we're getting people the Wall Street type of guy who are coming to us, to my practice, saying, I'm just getting a decline in my performance. I'm a bit angry. I'm actually getting a bit fatter now. My focus is a bit off. We're generally seeing guys that are around 49 years old or between 45 and 50. That's generally where we're getting our populations from. So I'm feeling as though that is the age group where most guys are starting to see differences. They're not as sharp as they were. They can't remember people's names as well as they did.
Wow.
Yeah. Sleep is affected. So they're coming to us. And one of the things that we do during the very first month of coming to us, we completely strip apart an individual. We're doing lab work. We're getting 10 vials of blood from you. We're getting around 7,000 different data points. One of those data points includes a hospital grade EEG scan. You know what that is?
No.
So it's one of those caps that you put on your head. There's all these electrodes that come out of it, and it measures the brainwave activity in your brain. Generally, we'd use this in a hospital setting for epilepsy.
Got it.
And so we're picking up on brainwave activity. We're also putting you against millions of other brains. And I was explaining to you that we had this one guy in, 49 years old, his brain came back as a 62-year-old brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to have a 62-year-old brain? It's just closer to Alzheimer's and stuff, or what?
It means that your brain is literally rapidly deteriorating. So you've got the brain of a 62-year-old person. And if you reverse engineer that, right, how did he get there? I always say that, Einstein actually said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And you would know that, you're a numbers guy. It's the same in health. What you do in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, it compounds, whether that's good or that's bad. So if we look at this guy, for example, 49 years old, he's been going to work, he's a hedge fund manager. So
probably not working out, probably not eating right.
He's getting up at 5 a.m. He's in the office, market opens at 8, closes at 4. Soon as the clock ticks 4, he's out, he's drinking. He's been doing that. He's got a wife. He's got 2 kids. He's been doing this for the past, I don't know what, 13, 15 years, 20 years even.
Yeah.
At compounds. 1 drink a week may not affect you, but what if it's 4 drinks a week? What if it's 10 drinks a week? It actually compounds over time.
Yeah.
And you see the effects in the later years of your 40s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they probably don't notice it in their 30s. And
You don't notice it in your 30s. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are, but I
I'm
remember.
34.
Okay, great. Do you remember back at 24 years old?
Yeah.
Did you ever get drunk at 24?
Yeah.
The next day, did you feel like you could still run a marathon?
Usually, but yeah.
Do you think you could do that today?
Man, I haven't gotten drunk in a long time, so it'd be hard to say, but yeah, I don't think I would feel the same. No.
Exactly. And I also don't drink now, and I'm in my early 30s, but back when I think I was around 21, I was a triathlete. So I raced for Australia, and I remember I distinctly remember this. I went to a party. It was a Halloween party, and I had a few drinks, and I think I got a bit tipsy. I was it was 21 years old. I was excited. I had to race the next day. I still came third. If I was to drink a glass of wine today, I don't know how I would wake up tomorrow. So yeah, things generally don't affect you in your 20s, but they do later on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, we're talking about the age of the brain, right?
Yeah.
And if you asked me, I'd say, well, my brain, I don't know what the age will say, but my 34-year-old brain is way sharper and smarter and everything than my 21-year-old brain.
Yeah.
So like, what would you want, a younger brain? Like what's the ideal brain?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Your brain fully develops, let's just say at around 25.
Okay.
Right? That's when you've built out all the structural and functional parts of the brain. Then at around 30, what happens if we're not going further anymore? We tend to go backwards. So at age 30, your brain begins to atrophy. Atrophy is just a decrease in cell size. So we've got around 87 billion neurons in the human brain, and they begin to die off. And they can die off just due to the natural brain aging process. You can see an MRI of a brain of a 30-year-old person, and then you put that up against a brain of an 85-year-old person, you'll see that the 85-year-old is significantly smaller, and the space between the brain and the skull is quite thick, right? Because your brain shrinks. It's just due to the natural brain aging process.
What's in between, by the way?
It's cerebral spinal fluid.
Okay.
Yeah. And so many people think that that's protective. Like when you see a concussion, they're like, it's okay, my brain's protected, but it's not. It's not viscous. So it's just like water, really.
It's just there.
Yeah, it's just there. And so what you see is we can actually accelerate that brain aging process. We can speed it up. You can speed it up through sleep deprivation, through alcohol, through smoking, lifestyle factors. Anything can really speed
stress.
Stress. Yeah. Bad diet. Lack of exercise.
Yeah. There are things we all know, but I guess now we're starting to really understand like the effects of what you can see it.
I mean, you would think that, right? But did you know that around 24% of US adults are meeting the exercise recommendations, meaning that there's around 76% of, and that's actually lenient. I think it's around, I would say there's around 80% of the US population that's still not exercising.
Yeah.
Exercising.
Yeah, I agree.
Such a basic free thing that we can do, but there's still 80% of the population that's not doing it. And I would argue that exercise is literally like medicine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Well, I mean, like if you just look at the process of tearing muscles down so they can rebuild stronger and everything else.
There's way more to it than that. More than happy to go through it if you want.
Tell me.
So you've got aerobic physical activity, which is just think of it as your long runs. Okay. You can still, you can do it for it's around 65% of your maximum heart rate.
Okay.
Right?
I don't do any of that.
You don't, well, you should.
I know. I want to hear what I need to do.
Yeah.
I just lift heavy weights.
Well, that's great. Okay. But I would also argue that if you want a really great performing circulatory system and heart as you age, you should really be doing like your zone 2, zone 3 cardio training.
Okay.
What this does is it really improves blood flow, for example. You also get this molecule that gets released. It's called BDNF. BDNF is brain-derived neurotropic factor, and it is like unbelievable. Some people are calling it like fertilizer for the brain. It improves everything from mood to even depression. Increased BDNF can even help with depressive-like symptoms. It goes into areas such as the hippocampus of the brain, which helps with memory, consolidation, formation. It helps with executive functioning in the frontal part of the brain. It's like an elixir to your brain.
What about like endorphins and stuff? You hear that all the time.
Yeah, endorphins, these neurotransmitters that get released during long distance running, cycling, etc., are released in response to aerobic training. Have you heard of a VO2 max test?
No.
No?
Assume I haven't heard of any of this stuff.
So a VO2 max test is a measure of your cardiorespiratory fitness.
Okay.
Basically, it's how well can you use oxygen when you are training at your maximum.
Got it.
So the higher that is, the fitter you are.
It's like just how efficient your body and your heart work.
That's correct. Yeah. How efficient you are at utilizing oxygen. And it is really closely linked to all-cause mortality. So per age group, we have you can be in an elite group of your age, you can be in a average, and you can be in a below average. And I would argue, it's every time you move up in those elite categories. So if you go from below average to average, you can increase your life expectancy by 2.9 years.
Wow.
So in order to keep training your VO2 max and having a higher VO2 max as you age, you have to do specific training. And it's not resistance training. It's that hard out efforts.
Got it.
Yeah.
So where does resistance training come into play?
Resistance training is my field. This is actually, I love it. I think it's absolutely fundamental for brain health, especially. Resistance training does a whole lot more. What happens specifically during resistance training, first and foremost, more muscle you have, the better you are with glycogen storage. So we know that glycogen just gets dumped into your muscles. So it's like a storage for your, it's like a storage sink for your glycogen. So that's the first and foremost. So it helps with diabetes, glucose control. Second to that is we release these molecules called myokines. Myokines are muscle-based proteins. And so when you exercise specifically, and when you're contracting your muscles, you release these myokines into the bloodstream. These myokines go and they lodge on different organs in the body, your brain, your liver, your prostate, your heart, and they have incredible effects. They're having effects on down-regulating inflammation. They have effects, especially on there's a really great study that's being done now to show that these myokines are inhibiting tumor cell growth in the prostate. So they're doing absolutely fantastic things for the brain. They're helping with the expression of BDNF. They're helping with the functionality of your brain, how well your brain functions. So this 49-year-old guy that I was explaining, who's got the brain of a 69-year-old or a 62-year-old, his brain wasn't functioning effectively.
That's crazy.
It's changing the structure of your brain. We've got 4 lobes of the brain, and then we've got a 5th lobe, which is called the cerebellum. It's a mini brain. They change its structure and its size. And every lobe of the brain has different functionalities. Your frontal lobe houses your focus, your attention, your prefrontal cortex. The temporal lobe is part of your auditory processing. The cerebellum is part of your posture of where, knowing where you are in time and space. Your occipital lobe, which is at the back of the brain, is responsible for your visual processing. So could you imagine if every part of the lobes of the brain were functioning better, how well would you be in your job?
You'd be way better.
You'd be way better.
Yeah. So how do you, make your brain better? Just don't do drugs, work out, eat. Like, is it as simple as that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I classify this according to like a 3-step pyramid. And so many people are just going out and buying into these marketing products that just don't work.
Yeah.
The best things you can do to start to have a better performing brain, you have to start with what Mother Nature gave you, which is exercise, sleep, and proper nutrition. Anything outside of that is what I call an accessory item.
Okay. So let's talk about the core pillars
Yeah.
exercise. We kind of just went into that, right?
Yeah.
You want to do some cardio, you want to do some resistance. Like, what's ideal?
WealthCon's coming back to Vegas January 8th to the 11th. Now, if you've been to our events, you know how epic they are. We have the best time, not only with just great content, great speakers, but we have a lot of fun with the after parties and the masterminds and everything else. And number one, it's probably the best networking opportunity in the entire game. We have over 1,000 investors and entrepreneurs at each one, and this will be no different. In fact, this is going to be my favorite WealthCon ever. We've got some amazing speakers coming, people like Tim Tebow, Thach Nguyen, Gabrielle Lyon, the list goes on. It is going to be an epic event, and I want to see you there. So if you're interested in attending, get your tickets now because they will not last. Go to wealthcon.org and get them today.
Everyone knows that my favorite way to build wealth is through real estate investing. That's the reason that I started Wealthy Investor, where we've trained thousands of students. But here's the thing. I've noticed that so many people fail to get started in real estate because they're worried about the money. They don't know where they're going to get the money to buy a house or flip or handle their renovations and things like that. And so they just never get started. I want to change that. And that's why I created a brand new free course that goes over 5 different ways that you could buy houses without using any of your own money today. And I'm going to give you it completely for free. All you have to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com/podcast. I've made it specifically for you. The moment you go to that link, you'll be able to go get access to it and learn how you could start buying houses today without any of your own money. And if you're somebody who already has a real estate business and who wants to scale, we want to help you too. You can click the link below and book a free strategy call with our team if that's you.
The current guidelines state, the physical activity guidelines state that you should be doing 150 minutes to 300 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity. Well, they say moderate. I think that you should be doing at least 300 minutes of vigorous physical activity.
Yeah, moderate would just be like walking.
Well, yeah. I mean, you want to be doing around zone 2, zone 3 for 300 minutes a week.
What is zone 2, zone 3?
So zone 2 is generally where you're working at around 60 to 65% of your maximum heart rate.
Got it.
Yeah. So, a really great way to figure out what your maximum heart rate is, we can do this specifically with a VO2 max test. But if you don't want to get fancy, just a really old method is you can do 220 minus your age.
220 minus your age. Interesting.
Yeah. So if you're 20 years old, then your maximum heart rate would be 200.
Oh.
And then to get into that zone 2, you'd be doing 65% of 200.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a 120 heart rate. You got to be cranking.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not too high. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you want to be doing, maybe 120 to 130 beats per minute.
Yeah.
300 minutes a week. You also want to be tapping that with your resistance training. In fact, did you know that we've got this right now in the US, we do have an epidemic of low testosterone, which I'm sure you've probably heard.
Yep. Oh, I've talked to many people about it on the show.
Yeah, which is classified as 300 nanograms per deciliter or less.
Yes.
It doesn't mean, even we're seeing 30-year-old guys coming in with low testosterone, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best ways to increase it naturally is through sleep and exercise and direct sunlight.
Yeah.
Things that you don't have to go out. You don't have to obviously inject yourself with TRT. These are the natural things that you can be doing to naturally increase your testosterone. What I hate so much is that people associate testosterone with libido and erections. And it's so much more than that, especially for males. Both men and women need testosterone. But it's very closely linked to effort and your will to survive. And testosterone is that it's that hormone that's going to make you feel better, more energized, more focused, more vigilant. Except we're not talking about it like that. We're talking about go and have this nootropic, sip on this, and this will make you more focused and vigilant. It's but what's your testosterone?
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a better conversation about what are the natural drivers of these hormones that are creating who we are. Your hormones, your micronutrients are creating who you are, which is why we do a blood test.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is, so I had Gabrielle Lyon on who introduced us, and she was like, yeah, I think women should have testosterone. I was like, really?
Well, we need it.
Yeah. I was like, that's news to me.
Yeah. And men need estrogen.
Yeah. Well, I know men have, there's all those different estrogen blockers and different things. I don't know fully how all those work, but I can tell you as a guy who was a former athlete and in good shape right now. I got tested for the first time last year. Blood test. I'd never had a blood test in my life.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 33 and somebody was like, hey, you know, you're like getting older. You should probably get a blood test.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I feel great. I still lift heavy weights. I don't got a problem in the bedroom. You know, like you just said, they associate it with erections and you're just like, no, I mean, like,
Yeah.
everything's good. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'll just get a blood test to see where I'm at. And I got tested and I was at, I think at that time, like 350.
Yeah. See?
And they were like, you're in range, but you're at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I was like, how? That's so weird. Cause I do all the right things.
Well, you think you do.
Okay. Well, I ended up, supplementing it with, just like multivitamins and all these different things, like stuff you could just buy on Amazon. I got it up to 500
Oh,
just
great.
doing that. And then, finally they were like, all right, well, you're kind of just like at the max for what you are. And I was like, all right, well, I'll try the other stuff now. So I'll try TRT, I'll try peptides, and I haven't gotten retested since, but I would guarantee now it's probably like 900 plus.
Yeah. And I would hope that you're doing this with a very great physician who's helping you along the way.
For sure.
And not doing the black market.
No. I don't. I'm like, Craigslist. Okay. What am I trying today?
Well, the reason I say that is because I would caution people against just buying any type of supplement on Amazon. You know, supplements are not FDA approved, so they're very highly unregulated. So anyone can really slap anything in a capsule, stick a label on it and sell it on Amazon.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say, make sure you're getting it from a reputable company that have got the, tick of approval. Maybe they've been triple certified by a governing body.
Yeah. I was doing it. The company for the supplements is called, I think, Life Extensions.
Oh yeah. Life Extension's great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people said they're good, but I mean, I was just taking like boron, multivitamin,
You're just doing
vitamin
it,
D.
Yeah. And see, look, here's the and I think like, what is it? 50% or 40% of the population is vitamin D deficient. Another vitamin that also is a hormone. So it's extremely important for us. But the way I tell everybody is stop doing guesswork. Go and have, like, blood work is when you understand blood work, okay? Or when you understand what it can do for you, go and do that and supplement based on blood work. Don't just go out there and take a whole bunch of supplements because somebody told you to do so.
Yeah. And that's like, I wasn't taking any of that.
Yeah.
And then I got the blood done and then I was like, all right, well, like, what should I do? And
Exactly. And you plug the holes. That's what blood work is. You just literally plug the holes. You have no idea how, like, if your baseline right now, if you told me, what's your energy level on a daily basis out of 10? If you said it was, hey, listen, it's a 6, just by plugging the holes through supplements based on blood work, you can get to about an 8.5, which is a huge increase in energy levels. And energy is everything.
I don't know how you feel, but as an athlete, I don't feel 10 out of 10 every day. It just is like today, I don't even have my voice. We were in Mexico doing the wrong things, for 5 days straight, having some margaritas and, around a lot of people and traveling a lot. And so I'm like, all right, well, I don't feel amazing, but I would say I would rate myself as a 6 or a 7 today.
Yeah.
But normally an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, perfect. And that's probably because you're optimizing your testosterone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely, it's interesting because like I said, I felt like I was doing all the right things and it was still low. So what do you think I wasn't doing?
So there's many things that could have affected that. One, the biggest one we have to talk about are EDCs. They're endocrine disrupting chemicals that are found in things such as plastic bottles. That's becoming very prevalent, increasing estrogen in men. You've heard about this, don't drink from a plastic bottle, don't eat your food from plastic, things like this. Environmental factors that can affect it. But the biggest ones, in my opinion, is lack of sleep. Sleep is arguably like, it's a human performance tool, something that is free and at our disposal. And it's funny, right? We're born and we are sleeping as babies, and now we have to relearn how to sleep in 2023.
How much sleep should like I don't even know what you would call me. I don't think you'd call me mid-aged, but a
You're young.
mid-30s
Yeah.
adult get?
Yeah. 7.5. Humans need at least 7.5 hours of sleep. The whole notion of 8 hours of sleep is just because you lose half an hour to, falling asleep and then waking up, the time spent in bed. You actually need 7.5 hours of sleep. But here's the kicker. We have 4 sleep stages.
I was going to ask you about this because I used to have my Oura ring telling me what was happening.
Yeah, and we can talk about wearables, but stage 1 sleep is when you're falling asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 2 is light sleep. That's when you hear a loud noise and you're probably going to wake up. Stage 3 sleep is called deep sleep. It's also called slow wave sleep. It's because when you're in a sleep lab and we hooked you up to an EEG, your brain waves have these big delta waves, right? So we know you're in deep sleep. During that stage, 2 things happen. One is you get the release of hormones. You've got growth hormone, which is responsible for basically rebuilding your muscles again. So that's where this whole accessory items come in. I don't care how many massage guns you have or how many lymphatic boots you've got on. If you're not sleeping and releasing growth hormone naturally, you're not going to replenish your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
First thing. Second thing is that's where your testosterone is released in deep sleep. So if you're not getting deep sleep, if you're not optimizing for deep sleep, you're not going to naturally get these natural releasing of testosterone, which is another reason why many guys are lower in that, because so many people are not sleeping now.
Mm-hmm.
Then stage 4 is your REM sleep, mainly responsible for, it's like emotional first aid.
It's where you dream, right?
It's where you dream vivid dreams, memory consolidation and learning takes place.
Got it.
And you mentioned your Oura ring. I wear one too. And I love it. I love wearables. However, they're not entirely accurate.
Yeah.
They're not going to take away from an in-lab PSG.
I've always wanted, I'm like, how the heck does this Oura ring know?
Yeah. The best thing it does pick up on is trends. So if you are wearing one, I would definitely say let it learn who you are over 2 or 3 weeks. Picks up on trends. It's great in picking up on deep sleep, probably not so great in picking up in REM sleep.
Yeah. I might have to go get it back.
Let it learn who you are for at least 3 weeks before you look at it.
Yeah, no, I wore it for probably like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, I get who I am and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like it gave me a clear picture. And what it found was I've always been, so like, I'll tell you my routine. On the weekdays, I usually go to bed around 10:30 to 11 and I wake up at 5. And I kind of like, I naturally wake up. Like I don't like wake up super tired.
Yeah.
Like it just, my body's used to it. And even on the weekends, I try to sleep in because I don't have to wake up at 5 and I'll sleep in till like 6 or 7. So I kind of get more sleep on the weekends. But what the Oura ring was telling me was I was really sleeping like, let's just say 5 hours a night because it like, it's just like, yeah, you weren't really sleeping even though you thought you were at 10:30, right? But my deep sleep was so high relative to my total sleep. It was like 50%. So I was still getting over 2 hours of deep sleep, even though the sleep itself was low. My REM was super low.
Yeah.
And somebody was telling me on the podcast, they're like, well, yeah, that's why you don't feel absolutely terrible like someone else would, because you're still recovering and getting your growth hormone and all that.
Yeah. Another thing as well that's happening during deep sleep, which is probably why you're feeling so good, is we get the activation of our lymphatic system. You've heard of lymphatic system, right, in the body?
I've heard of it. I don't know what it is.
It's like, people go and get a lymphatic massage just to move around the lymph and detoxify all the toxins that build up.
My wife had one of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have one in our brain. Yeah. And it was only really discovered back in, I think, 2011. And it's so fascinating because we have these little cells in our brain called glial cells, and they shrink during deep sleep.
Wow.
Now, remember the cerebral spinal fluid I mentioned earlier? So that is in your brain. And what happens is your brain washes all of the toxins out during deep sleep. That's why you feel good in the morning, because you're clear, because your brain has cleared out all of these toxins. So one of the reasons why we're having an acceleration in brain aging is because we don't sleep, we don't get into deep sleep, we don't activate the lymphatic system. And if we don't activate the lymphatic system, over time, compound interest, those little molecules, those toxic molecules build up, and they become a problem. It's actually a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
So that's another reason why we're having accelerated brain aging. But back to the whole notion of sleeping to get the release of testosterone. Have you noticed that, like, some of the reasons why a lot of our guys also come to us is confidence issues or hair issues? I'm losing my hair. Another reason for low testosterone as well is psychological stress. Psychological stress is also a major indicator of hair loss as well.
As you can tell, I don't have that.
You don't have any of that. You've got beauty. Yeah, I'm even envious of that hair. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny because people will tell me, well, dude, like you should be really stressed and I'm like, honestly, I don't like feel super stressed. I mean, I have a ton going on, but like to me, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a problem and we'll deal with it. And it is what it is. Like, I don't know. I don't like stress. I don't feel stressed, but I would assume my body faces intense stress. It's just used to it.
Let me ask you something. When you went from a 350 testosterone to whatever it is now, arguably over 500, what did you feel?
I feel definitely more energy. I feel more like driven.
Correct.
I was already driven, but I feel more driven. Like, hey, I'm about to go crush some things.
That's just one data point. So many men, I'm working with guys who have got over 250 million under asset management, right? So they've got a lot of stress. Just optimizing for one thing, which is testosterone, can make the difference between how well they sleep, how well they communicate, how well they show up, how much energy they have. And that in turn affects their bottom line.
Yeah, it does.
Hugely. And that's just one data point. Then imagine we plug the holes and we get your vitamin D corrected, every other macronutrient corrected. Let's just say all of your micronutrient profiles are in place. Hormonal profile is in place. But then we get you exercising. You feel good. You've got blood flow that is, circulating throughout your system. You've got the release of these molecules, these, BDNF, irisin, myostatin, all of these molecules that get released only during exercise. How well would you feel?
I mean, you're optimizing everything at that point.
Even depression, for example. There is something happening right now in society, especially in New York. I'm seeing so many people going in and doing ketamine therapy. You heard of that? It's just, for major depression. And it turns out that ketamine actually acts like BDNF in the brain.
Wow.
But you can get BDNF naturally through exercise.
People don't want to go the natural route. It's too hard.
It's just, exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
They want the quick fix.
Everyone wants the quick fix. We want to do it through the pill, but it's just not the same.
Well, and I'll tell people this too. I'm like, as a guy who, like I said, has tried testosterone and other things, I will tell you, if you don't do the other things still, it ain't going to do nothing for you.
No,
like I meet other guys who are like, yeah, dude, I'm on TRT too. And I'm like, doesn't look like it to me.
Yeah.
They're still just out of shape and like tired and they think they need more. And I'm like, no, you need to go, like, it's only going to, I guess, amplify what you already do.
Correct. Accessories.
Yeah.
Supplements. So it's the same as like, you can go and exercise your life away, right? You can do so much to it. But if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to get the benefits of exercise.
Right.
And a really great way to put this plugging of the holes in place is you have to be healthy to exercise well. Exercise is just adaptation. You're just putting stress on your system so it adapts. So then you get stronger. That's what we want in life. We want to stress the system, not chronically, but we want to stress our system so it adapts and we get stronger in that area. But in order to get ourselves to that threshold of stress that's needed for adaptation, you have to have slept well. You have to have great testosterone levels. You have to have great hormonal profiles. So you have to be healthy to exercise. You have to be healthy to sleep well.
What do you think about my sleep based on what I just told you?
I think that I think if you just increased your total sleep time, you'd find more beneficial effects. I would want to understand why your REM sleep is so low. I mean, I don't know what it was as a percentage. Do you remember?
I'd have to go look at the app, but I mean, it might have been, if my true sleep time was say 5 hours a night, deep sleep was accounting for like 2 to 2.5.
Yeah. And 5 hours is screamingly low.
Yeah.
When you look at all the data, like peer-reviewed data in humans, what they classify as sleep deprivation is 6 hours or less. So you are, and you don't feel it right now. And that's the beauty of what I'm talking about. You don't feel it now because you're young.
Yeah.
You will feel it in your 50s and your 60s.
Got it.
And that's when these diseases happen. You've got cardiovascular disease, you've got the dementias.
And at that point, you can't fix it.
You can't. There is no reversing.
Yeah.
You can slow the progression of these diseases, or you can prevent them. Granted, you don't have the genetic risk factors that will definitely tell you to get Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
There are some people who just have it.
Yeah. We just got a genetic test on my son, and I'll talk to you about it off camera, but it revealed some things that we were trying to figure out, like what was going on with him.
Yeah.
And so now we can do the right things, preventatively as he ages and everything. And then, yeah, for me, I was like, well, dang, I should probably get a genetic test to see like what I'm predisposed to. Do you recommend that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing that on all of our guys as well.
Okay. Because I haven't had that.
Yeah. And I do this specifically because I research Alzheimer's disease. One of my papers is about to get published. And so I love this area. I find the link between exercise and Alzheimer's disease. So I'm testing everybody for the genetic predispositions, which are, you can think of these as, they're called ApoE4, genetic risk factors that could increase your chances of getting Alzheimer's disease. But even if you do have it, doesn't mean you will get it. So we're doing these genetic testing on everybody just to understand them. And people are scared, and I get that. If you're scared to get, find out what your genes reveal, I get that too. But sometimes you may want to just know so you know how to modify your lifestyle.
Yeah. No, it's super important because like even my wife, she got, it wouldn't have been a genetic test, but for food allergies. And she discovered her gluten allergy is super, it's not celiac, but it's like a level right below it.
Yeah.
And she stopped eating gluten and it was just like night and day. She'd never known that you could feel a different way.
Yeah.
She was just used to it.
And just from that will then have an effect, because it's like a cycle, right? That'll have an effect on how well she trains. How well she trains has an effect on how well she sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
How well she sleeps will have an effect on how well she eats.
Yeah. And that's one thing we've been talking about, because she's never gotten good sleep.
Yeah.
But she's also not big on working out, but she's also in good shape. So like she has the issue of, well, I'm in good shape, so I don't necessarily need to work out like crazy. I work out just because I've done it my whole life. I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
But she does have bad sleep. But also too, her problem is, well, it's not her problem, but we've had 3 kids in the last 5 years. So
there you go. I mean, that's going to definitely.
no matter what, I mean, right now we got a 3-month-old.
Okay. Then there you go.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And of course, I always get, every time I put up a post about sleep deprivation, I do get, attack of the mothers. And it's like, I get it. Apart from, early childhood and breastfeeding, outside of that, I'm talking about, like, there are just so many things you can do to increase your sleep. So if anybody's listening and they're like, well, I just want to be able to increase my performance naturally, work on your sleep. Just work on doing the exercise protocols I mentioned. Try and work on sleep, because it is really, really important.
Yeah, you mentioned food. So you were talking like, well, you might be getting plastics. And I talked about her eliminating gluten. I've heard all these things about, how gut health is affecting people so much now. And there's all these different theories. So what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can even do gut microbiome testing, right? And we know that a lot of what we eat, there's so many, I think there's like an actual like specialty in psychiatry now, which is deemed as nutritional psychiatry, which is how can we eat that is better for our gut health, that is better for our mind and our brain. And there's been, there's so many physicians now even talking about how major depression and these disorders are metabolic disorders from what we eat. So what you eat can really affect how your gut synthesizes it and how well your brain actually optimizes it. So I'm not a nutritionist. It's not my field. But what I do recommend are 2 nutrients to have a healthy performing brain. And this goes beyond blood work, right? So I don't care what your blood work states. They are creatine and omega-3 fatty acids.
Got it.
Yeah, creatine. I don't know if you're taking any.
I've always been on and off. Should I just be on it all the time?
Yeah, you don't have to cycle it. It's completely safe.
So I'll just put it in my protein.
Yeah, the most widely studied supplement on the market. Completely safe, completely effective. We know that you can, by even having at least 5 grams of creatine per day, you can increase your brain creatine levels.
Okay.
We know that it's implicated in neuronal cell energy. So you're putting more energy into the cell so you can think faster, live longer, essentially. Creatine is like probably one of the best things.
Does it matter which creatine? I know there's a bunch.
Creatine monohydrate would be the best one to take.
Got it.
Honestly, you can get it from anywhere.
Okay.
Reputable company first. Women can take it too. A lot of females are scared of taking it, that it's going to make them feel bloated or
masculine.
I mean, yeah, like big. It's going to take them so long to get big. So I wouldn't be afraid of that. It also doesn't affect hair loss. I think that there was a study that came out in 2009 that scared everybody. Apparently what they said was that the population of people taking creatine were increasing the DHT and it just doesn't do that. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me. One of the things, the other supplements I was taking was DHEA.
DHEA is amazing. Actually, I did my blood work and I was a bit low.
Yeah.
I was a bit low in testosterone and DHEA. DHEA is a precursor. So you need it for the formation of, testosterone and estrogen. And they call it the youth hormone because it deteriorates as you get older.
But what was funny was I was low. And so, that was one of the things they told me to get. So I'd been taking it now for like a year and then I got retested and they're like, all right, so someone's going to tell you your DHEA is too high now. And they're like, but don't believe them. Just keep doing what you're doing. You know,
what's interesting. Low DHEA, there was a wonderful study that came out, and only I just discovered this. Low DHEA is correlated with low REM sleep.
There we go.
So as soon as I started supplementing, I too did this over the past 3 months. I've started supplementing with DHEA because I was low. And guess what? My REM sleep is skyrocketed to 30% now.
And I have not done my testing, my Oura Ring, since that happened.
To go and do that, I'm telling you, your REM sleep will be sky high. So
I'm gonna get back on the Oura Ring. I gotta buy a new one.
Do it and definitely let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna track and see where my numbers are now since I've been like on this journey since initially getting it.
Yeah. So creatine, absolutely fundamental, and then you've got these omega-3 fatty acids, which you can get what we call an omega-3 index test. This measures the amount of omega-3 in your red blood cells.
Okay.
Traditionally, if you just go to your practitioner and say, I want an omega-3 test, what it does is it's just testing what you ate pretty much the last 3 days.
Okay.
So it's not a true measurement of the omega-3 profile in your
No,
in
and
your
you
red
just
blood
like
cells.
when most people do is just they take fish oil, right?
And so yes, that's good. Okay. Some of the fish oils, most of them out there are pretty rancid. So you want to get them from high quality products.
Yeah.
The type of fish oil matters. So omega-3 fatty acids come from fatty fish like salmon and mackerel. And if you have, most of the US population has an omega-3 index of 4%. And that is extremely low and associated with all-cause mortality, right? So you want to be bringing your omega-3 index up to around an 8%. That's actually what they have in Japan.
Wow.
And they have an increase in life expectancy by over, I think, 5 years. So you can get your status from from 4% to like 8% by supplementing with 2 grams a day.
Speaking of Japan, and now you're talking about fish, I always think of sushi. And I was talking to Gabby and she was like, no, I don't eat any raw fish. And I've talked to many other people who say the same thing.
I think that her and I, the reason why we're so close is because we both don't eat raw fish.
Is it really that bad for you?
No, no, God, no. I wish I did. Do you know how many like
I
people
love
actually
it.
judge me?
I judge you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just crushed some oysters last night. I crushed some tuna. It was great.
I hate it because I go on a lot of business meetings, if you will, and they always want to go to, there's this place called Bond Street. I guess it's got great sushi in New York. And I'm like, I can't go there because I don't eat raw fish.
Mm.
And
what's the reasoning? You don't like it?
I just
or you
don't like it.
Okay. So
I'm
it's not
I'm
a
very
health
weird.
reason.
No. I wish I ate it.
Because like the way I've heard from others is like, oh, well, the mercury or like the
No.
bacteria or something.
I just don't like, I don't eat a lot of.
Okay. So you
Weird
see
food.
no reason I can't just keep eating that.
No, I mean, look, salmon roe is absolutely incredible. When you're thinking about, there's actually a really great study. They did this on pregnant women because there was this whole notion that pregnant women shouldn't be eating fish due to mercury content.
Well, they definitely shouldn't eat raw stuff, right?
They definitely shouldn't eat raw stuff. But it turns out that during this study, they found that the omega-3 content actually outweighed the mercury.
Mm.
And mercury is really high in fish such as swordfish, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe stay away from that. Maybe just stick
I'm not
to,
out here eating a ton of swordfish.
yeah, stick to wild caught salmon.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be concerned about that too
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Got it.
Only if you're eating like tons and tons of canned fish a day.
Okay. Now, like, what do you think about the whole issue of, just meat in general, right? People
Yeah.
are like, oh, meat's bad for you. Just stick to greens and the earth.
I hate those people, the ones who are just prescribed. Yeah, I don't like the ones who subscribe to an all or nothing diet, the carnivore diet, the plant-based diet.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm an everything girl. I'm Greek.
Yeah.
So I got brought up.
I love
eating-
Euros.
Yeah, you love them too.
I
Yeah.
love them.
Look, lamb. I mean, I eat everything. To me, meat. I mean, the nutrient profile of meat is just untapped in anywhere else, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You've got everything. You've got your protein there. You've got minerals. You've got micronutrients. You've got so much within a steak that outweighs to me, eating herbs and whatever it is this plant-based diet is.
You know what's funny is
Someone's going to clip that and
yeah. Well,
get
no, you
mad at
actually
me.
just it's funny because he's my friend. His name's Jeff. He was on the podcast. He owns an acai bowl franchise.
Oh, nice.
And so he has a bunch of them nationwide. And I go, all right, dude, look, tell me why I should eat an acai bowl. Because to me, it seems like it has no benefit.
Isn't it just sugar?
That's what I said. I was
Yeah.
like, isn't it just a bunch of sugar? There's no protein. Why would I eat this? And like, how can you call this healthy? And he's like, well, you need sugar to survive and all this. And then he also said like, you don't need to eat that much protein. Cause I was like, I need at least a gram of protein per body weight. That's what
Per pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what any smart person I've ever met has
Yeah.
always done, who also looked good. And he's like, nah, you don't need that. And then he clipped it and then it just like, it did go viral, but it went viral against him. They're like, this guy's an idiot. And like you can get by without sugar. You can just eat the carnivore diet and you'll live. And so I'm just curious, like, I don't know, your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Look, another problem we have in the US is low magnesium.
Yeah.
And look, magnesium is so important for us, okay, especially for bone health. In fact, it turns out that 1 out of 3 females over the age of 50 will have an osteoporotic fracture. Osteoporosis is huge, especially postmenopausal when you stop when estrogen is no longer there and available. You really got to look after your bones. So magnesium is found within a chlorophyll molecule, which is in greens. So I'm not against plants. I love plants. I eat every single day. I'm probably doing 70% plants and 30% meat. Which is consistent. I don't eat pork. There's no religious reason or anything. I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I do eat red meat.
Red meat.
Yeah. Red meat.
Now, when you say
chicken.
plants, are you talking like potatoes and rice and stuff too? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I eat all that. I mean, I don't eat I'm not a cake girl. I'm not getting, I probably wouldn't eat an acai bowl regularly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely steak or chicken. And I'm also trying to optimize for my protein intake.
You like 1 gram of protein for your body weight?
I'm still on the Australian metric system. So I do around 1.8 grams per kilogram.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which probably ends up being around
The
a
same.
pound. Yeah.
Got
And
it.
Gab also recommends that too.
Yeah. I've always found it to be true. And then like, even as I've been putting on mass now, because I've put on about 15 pounds in 4 months.
Yeah.
And I was never gaining, like I was the same weight for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just eating probably like 600 calories more a day. And my guy was like, dude, honestly, you can't eat enough protein.
Yeah.
Like he's like, with your ratios, it's just, you could eat as much as you want.
And everyone has to understand, everyone's optimizing for something different. When somebody comes to my practice, it's not, I've got guys who are like, hey, Louisa, like my wife and I can't fall pregnant and she's fine. So then it comes back to everyone's optimizing. When it comes to health, it's so individual. You are optimizing for something different.
Yeah.
So if you're optimizing for increased muscle mass, then of course you're going to have a different profile, like of how much protein you're having compared to someone who's optimizing for longevity.
Yeah.
Because maintenance and building are two different things.
Right.
So everyone's optimizing for something different. Don't look at anybody else. Just look at yourself. It's very individual, and just plug the holes when you can.
Got it. So food, sleep,
Yeah.
and then workout.
Those are probably the three things. And then there's also actually a fourth bucket, which I'm probably going to include on the top tip of this, which has just become apparent to me. And it's actually happiness.
Fulfillment.
Through social connection. I keep going back to testosterone. Testosterone is related, like I said, to making effort feel good, but you have to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? With everything, we know dopamine, for example, which is that reward molecule within that reward system. For you to keep getting the release of dopamine, just to increase your confidence, right?
Yeah.
You have to release dopamine. When you're setting a goal, right, whether it's a small goal, if you hit that goal, you get a release of dopamine. So it closes this circuit. So it tells you you've done something good. So it improves your confidence and your happiness.
Mm-hmm. Social
Connections. There was a really great Harvard study that was done where they tracked people over 80 years. And they found that above everything, at that 80-year mark, the ones who had the best performing brains were the ones who had great relationships, great social relationships, not just romantic. So this means something to us. So I think that that's also a pillar of health that is going unrecognized.
Yeah. You got to have community and fellowship, and you got to hang with the boys. There's science. Yeah. The science tells you got to hang, hang with the boys.
That's true. I do believe that. I think girls have to have their female companions
for sure
as well. And then we can talk about the accessory items, if you will.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
I'm huge on that.
Everybody goes there first, though. That's the problem.
Of course, because it's easy.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like a man. You get into the cold bath and you get out and you feel
yeah.
great.
Let's talk about the cold plunge, because I have this thing about the cold plunge that cracks me up. So I'll hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Full transparency, I do have one in my living room.
Okay. All right. You're not. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me hear it.
I know. Yeah. So we'll just leave it at that. So cold water immersion is amazing. I do it first thing every morning.
Okay.
What we've seen, I do 3 minutes. No more, no
how
less.
cold is it?
43 degrees.
That is so cold. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. I started off at like 49.
Okay.
And then I just kept going down. You don't want to become cold adapted. That's a thing. But we know when you get into the cold, you get a massive release of this neurotransmitter called norepinephrine.
Got it.
And that's the one that's involved in vigilance and focus. That's why when you get into the bath, I don't know if you've done it, we'll talk about that. You feel so excited, right? But here's the thing, right? I'm seeing now on social media, people are dunking their entire body in and just breathing through a straw. It's like, what are you trying to do? It's becoming this whole game on social media that is taking away from the health benefits.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
It's a flex.
It's a flex, okay? You don't need it. So cold water immersion serves as, a huge bonus. Only if you're doing everything else. Okay, that's why it's an accessory.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on cold? I know you have some. Yeah.
Well, so my thought is that obviously it's trending a ton right now on social media.
Great.
So people, are just all about it, right?
If you're watching this show, my guess is you're probably an entrepreneur who's trying to grow your business. And for me, the best thing I ever did to grow my business was build my personal brand on social media. It's allowed me to get more revenue. It's allowed me to raise more capital, and it's allowed me to hire better talent. And if you are not currently creating content for your brand, you're missing out, and your competition is. So if you want to learn to grow, my advice is to create a podcast. Now, there's a lot that goes into building a podcast and why I believe it's the best way. So I've actually created a free training that I want you to go check out. If you go to pinedamedia.com/podcast, you can go access the free training right now and see how a podcast is going to be the best decision to grow your personal brand today. So go check it out by clicking the link below, and I'll see you in the training.
It's funny because coming from sports, like the ice bath was always a thing. This is not anything new.
Yeah.
You know, I remember doing ice baths 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why is this now a thing? You know, people all of a sudden think it's just this new
Instagram.
revolutionary idea. And I always hated the ice bath. And I was just like, I don't even need this because, you know, there would be people on the team and especially the catchers, they would always ice bath after a game because their legs. And I'm like, cool, whatever works for you. I feel great without it. I'm gonna stay away from it. Now that being said, the reason I crack up is because I just see, once again, it's the same reason I crack up with TRT is like unhealthy people doing it and swearing by it. And they're like, Ryan, you got to do the cold plunge, dude. You're going to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, I feel 1,000 times better than you feel without the cold plunge because I do the actual hard things.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to do the cold plunge. I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. And look, there's so many actual like myths around cold water as well.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones is getting in straight after a training session.
Okay.
We actually know that it blunts the effects of hypertrophy training. So you go and do a huge leg workout, right? And then if you jump in the bath immediately afterwards, you're blunting the effects. So you're actually just stopping yourself from growing bigger muscles, which is the whole
That was the point.
Exactly. So what you want
It's
to
like
do,
not eating the protein after.
Yeah. So what you want to do is keep it around 2 hours away from exercise, which by the way, when I was a triathlete, our ice baths, again, you know, I quit in 2013, but I was, you know, training, you know, in my teens and in my early 20s, back when ice baths weren't a thing. So we were getting into it, but we were doing it after a swim session. So after a swim session, we'd get into the ice bath. So that was the only time we were doing it. It was amazing, but it was so cold back then.
Yeah, nobody was looking at it back then as this, like, I don't even know how people
Health
look
benefits,
at it now.
yeah.
It was like recovery.
Yeah.
Hey, you ice your arm and stuff after you just used it a bunch and you just constrict blood flow. And then it's like, well, actually you should put heat on it and let blood flow go more. And that's what's going to heal you.
Yeah. And that's actually been shown. So many people have seen like the effects of sauna right after, you know, a training session. A lot of fighters are doing that. I mean, is that great? I mean, it is good, but we're also seeing, because it does improve blood flow. Blood flow is nutrients and oxygen. We know that. But I would caution against it if you're a huge sweater. You know, you're just going to go and dehydrate yourself even more. But you can replenish that with electrolytes. I love the sauna. But I just want to go back to all this, you know, we're picking on men a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pick on women for a bit, because one of my biggest hates is when I see girls who are not exercising, they're lifting these tiny pissy 1 pound dumbbells, but they're getting these vitamin drips, these vitamin IVs. It's like, what are you doing with your life? And it's like,
I tried one of those IV drips once.
Yeah. And how'd you feel?
Literally didn't do anything.
Even these NAD IVs, which is, as we know that it doesn't even penetrate the cell. So you're spending $600 getting this NAD IV, but you are skinny fat. It's like you are not lifting heavy. You're not lifting enough. You're probably not sleeping well, but you're doing an IV. It's just the same as you know. So I don't know what it is. It's this Instagram has invited this competition kind of thing, like who can get the hottest, who can stay in the sauna the longest. It's like that's got nothing to do with health benefits there.
Yeah. What do you think of like the hot yoga?
Oh, hot yoga's fine.
Okay.
I'm not a yoga person. I wish I was.
I used to do it like 10 years ago because it was back when Bikram yoga was big.
Yeah.
I don't think it's big now after like whatever Netflix thing came out. But like I would do it just because I was trying to get more flexible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I mean, it must be better because it's like freaking really hot and hard in here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I love it. I actually do it for some reason when I go back to Australia.
Okay.
I'm going back next week. It must be just an Australian,
Yeah.
thing to do. I love it, but I wouldn't choose that over weights.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither. So it's funny because, cold plunge is one of those things. You talked about sauna. I actually am building a wellness kind of room at my house. So right now I have my own gym at my house and it's weights. I have a treadmill and a bike. I don't really use them, but I'm going to start using them now.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm building this little wellness center next to it. And I got a sauna and a red light and a hyperbaric chamber.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
LOL at the red light. Why do you have it?
It came with the sauna.
Okay.
It's just like inside the sauna.
Okay, then I get that. I thought you meant you went and bought those red light panels.
No, I'm not going to sit in the red light. Like I just don't even.
Well, so many guys are putting red light on their testicles to increase sperm
I'm not doing
and
that.
production. So I didn't know if that's
but that would be
something you're
funny
doing.
if I did.
Yeah. To increase testicle size, actually.
Red light, they think it increases testicle size.
It was, I debunked that on a reel.
I could just see myself just sitting there, just chilling. No, I don't know. It just came with it. So
Yeah.
I've seen the people talk about it, but I don't really even know what the red light does.
Yeah, it's actually, we're seeing some good research starting around photobiomodulation. That's the fancy scientific word. We're seeing this, that if you can insert it even transcranial, like if you can insert it in your nose, which there are these, little rods that go up there and they
Red
shoot
light
up to
rods?
kind of, they clip on your nose and
It's
they
like
go
a
up.
flashlight.
Kind of, yeah. And they could go up into your brain and have an effect on the mitochondria of the brain. We're seeing actual like rat studies that have been done to
Wow.
show effects of that. But look, it's meant to just, improve, I would say, cellular functioning and mitochondrial health,
Got it.
which is not bad. But guess what? Aerobic training does it even better. Aerobic
Yeah.
training improves mitochondrial biogenesis, and so does cold. Cold water immersion actually increases your rate of creating new mitochondria.
So for me, I don't like the cold. I love the heat. So I live in Vegas. And like the sauna, I just thoroughly enjoy.
I love the sauna.
Yeah.
Like I've got one in I kind of live half between Australia and here. And Australia is, I've got much more room in my tiny New York City apartment. And, I've got a sauna there as well. It is 4 times a week. I love it.
So I have that. And then the hyperbaric chamber. What do you think of those?
Yes. Okay. First of all, yes to the concussed guy from NFL who's just had a major concussion. And if he can get into the hyperbaric oxygen chamber within 48 hours, yes.
Okay.
Yes to the post-stroke patient who's just had a right parietal lobe infarct and he's gone into the hyperbaric oxygen chamber to increase oxygen to the brain during that healing process when that's most crucial. I think it's an accessory item as well. Yes, it improves oxygen to the brain and the body, but it wouldn't be something that is absolutely needed.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, for me, I don't really care for it for myself. I actually bought it for my son. So he was recommended for him because he's got special needs. And so they're like, hey, this oxygen is going to help his development and his cells and all these things. And so I'm just going to sit in there with him and do it.
Yeah. And look, just think about it as we're just getting more oxygen. It's 100% oxygen. I would love it if I had this in my apartment as well, because I travel a lot. We know that when you travel, you've got decreased oxygen in the airplane.
Yeah, that's true.
So getting out and
it'd be good for after travel.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah. I want it for my dad who had a stroke in 2019. I would love it if he would do this. Arguably, if he could do it daily. But, it's just, I basically have to get a lawyer against me to fight for them to even go to the gym. And I have to set up an entire case study with a manual to.
He's like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Don't sue me. So have you seen when those people will bike with oxygen on them? What are they doing?
Yeah. I mean, they're just improving lung capacity when they're doing that. It's the same as if you were to go, we did training camps in Colorado when I was a
The
triathlete.
higher altitude.
It's just like that. And
Got
we
it.
would actually be better when we'd come back down into Sydney. We'd be fitter. It's just like doing that. But is it needed? No.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a weird question. So I recently had a guy on who has a very interesting take on the best way to become healthy and stem cells and everything.
It's not Gary Brecker, is it?
I've had Gary on too. So this is his take, and it's weird, but I want to hear what you think. He believes in drinking your own urine.
Why?
Okay, so his
Is he
argument.
stuck in a desert without water?
No. So his argument is that urine contains stem cells and your DNA and everything else. And that the studies show if urine sits out for like 2 weeks, the stem cells like just rapidly multiply into like millions or billions. And instead of going and getting these stem cells from, whatever, these are like stem cells produced by your body that will heal you because it's already gone through your body and knows like the DNA, because he's like, water has memory. It has all of that.
Okay, that's why I wouldn't trust him, because he says that water has memory.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of the same as this one woman. I think she's a chiropractor, and she believes that if you have this special wand, it does something to the water. And we're really missing what water actually is, literally. H2O. Hydrogen and oxygen. People are trying to make it into this whole thing. It's memory. It's this, it's that. And if you do this with the crystals and it changes, people really need to take a science course to understand it. So that's why I probably wouldn't believe him, because he thinks that water has memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other argument he made was that, well, the stem cells, I haven't looked at it, but apparently they're there.
Okay.
And then also like, one of the things he said that like made sense to me was, well, think about like what's happening in the womb with a baby.
Yep.
A baby's drinking its own urine all the time while it's in the womb, and it's growing and it's getting nutrients. And how is that happening?
Yeah. Again, we're not babies. We're not fetuses.
Yeah.
We're also surviving on oxygen and, other things.
That's a good point.
And we don't have an umbilical cord. We're fully developed.
So you don't think I should drink my own urine?
I probably don't. I haven't actually looked in. I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Okay.
I do know that there is some women out there doing weird things with their menstrual blood.
I've heard that too.
Putting it on their face. It's not something I've looked into or have. I also know that there are, women, after they've given birth, doing this placenta smoothie.
Yep.
Haven't done that.
I watched. So we did
Haven't eaten that.
we did the home birth 3 months ago.
Oh, wonderful.
And I actually delivered a baby, for those who don't know. It was crazy that the midwife was late.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So
That's really comforting to your wife.
Yeah. So it was just us, and I delivered the baby in the bathtub. So it was kind of crazy.
Oh my God, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
actually unbelievable.
Thank you. I don't want to offend you, but I was saying that I was a doctor after.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, we did it. And then, the midwife finally came, we cut the cord and all that stuff. And then she goes, okay, Ryan, I'm going to show you the placenta. And just pulled it out. And I'm like, dude, this thing is crazy.
Yeah.
We didn't keep it, but I was just like, it looks pretty nutrient dense to me. I don't know.
I was going to say you didn't eat it.
No, I should have. My guy Liver King would have ate it, but
Amongst other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm not there yet in the research of crazy things. I like to focus on sunlight. I like to focus on like things that are readily available to us, things that have got like enormous research to back it up.
Well, like I've had Liver King on, and he says the same things you're saying to a degree, where he's like, sunlight, exercise, get your protein,
He's also injecting himself with a number of different agents as well, which that's neither here nor there. That's fine, whatever he's doing. And I know that in some instances he's been widely discredited.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fine. Everyone has their own thesis. My thesis is different to, everybody else's.
Yeah. Well, and that's the hard part with this, right? Because you'll have his thesis, you'll have, the urine guy's thesis, you'll have the vegetarian's thesis.
Yeah, the plant-based.
Yeah,
the
like,
this and that.
and I'm just like, there's so much information out there, and you could just take any little things you want to make it look good.
Yeah. And then you look at my grandmother, right? She went through so much stress in her life, born and raised in Cyprus, had 9 kids, moved them all by herself to Australia during the war, brought up all the kids, like my dad, brought up all of them in a 1-bedroom house, and she didn't have any supplements, and she lived until 95 years old.
Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, there's just all these marketing narratives that whoever is trying to push for their product or their beliefs, like there's always a product behind it, right? Like when Gabrielle was talking about the history of the food industry and how like this ideology came about of just all this stuff. And it's like, it all came from these massive food companies. Like the commodity business could not compete with marketing budget. Like Pepsi alone is triple the marketing budget.
It's like $1 billion, their marketing budget.
Yeah, their marketing budget was like $750 million for commodities, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And then Pepsi's is $2 billion.
Exactly.
Just one company. Like how do you know what to trust?
Exactly. How do you know what to trust? It's like if you've got these marketing companies telling you that, rice bubbles are good for you for the morning breakfast, it's like, what am I meant to trust? I do feel sorry, by the way, for people who just don't have the science education, or they're not in the medical field, or they don't know anybody, because it really is hard to just know who to trust first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it honestly comes down to reputable people on the internet who you can watch, who have been backed by others, who are actually trying to do good for the world, who are not ripping into these, actually, here's a really great way to know if somebody is trustworthy. It's if they say the word cure, or if they have extremes. A really great practitioner or scientist, you'll hear them say, we just don't know. It could or it couldn't. It may or it may not. But the ones who are saying, if you get into the bath, it is the ice bath, it is the number one way to dramatically decrease fat loss.
That's a marketing guy. Yeah. This is the best way to do real estate. I'm like, well, there's like a million ways to do real estate.
Improve the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. It's all marketing. So with that, for me, I think about just the health industry as a whole and how much money is in it, and so it's like, I'm seeing the rise of cold plunging and of certain foods and of peptides and of testosterone. Like, it's just like all these things are now popping up. The accessories, it's like the accessories are the easy things to sell versus the actual hard work. Cause like we've already heard, eat, sleep, and work out.
Yeah. Plus it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
Yeah. Look, even for me, I sleep, I really bank on sleep, but if we didn't need it, I wouldn't do it because I love life. I get really excited and I read a lot, and then sleeping means I have to stop reading at night. It kind of shows my age, like, and how boring I am, but it's like, damn it. But like, but we, unfortunately we have to do it. It's not sexy.
No, none of the hard things are sexy. It's like, everything that we do on a day-to-day basis to run this business, you see the end result and you're like, oh man, I want that. But if you watched all the boring things that happen here, you're just like, all right.
Yeah.
I guess that's what success. I don't want to do that.
But people are misinformed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they only see a 30-second social media clip.
And that's fine. Yeah. It can be clipped. And that's what I think about with marketing. It's like, what are you actually selling and why are you selling it? We've had many conversations. I don't put people down on Instagram, but there was one guy, there was one clip that I saw of Gary where it was just so wrong that I felt the need to actually, tell people what was wrong about it.
What part was he talking about?
I mean, I forget which one he was talking about. It had something to do with the brain. He said that the brain is a non-metabolic organ, meaning that it doesn't require metabolism to function. It is, in fact, the most metabolic organ in the human body. The most metabolic organ in the human body. That's what upset me. He did I'm sure he made a mistake by saying that the All Blacks were an Australian national football team. They're a New Zealand national football team. He also said that the haka, which is a traditional historical song.
I was going to say, isn't that a New Zealand thing?
A New Zealand thing, but he mentioned that it was the reason why they do the haka is to increase oxygenation to the brain. Completely wrong. It has nothing to do with neurology or biology. It actually has to do with the traditions.
I was going to say, isn't it just
Zealand.
culture?
Yeah. He also stated that the third leading cause of death globally is elevated blood pressure. Elevated blood pressure is a risk factor for the diseases such as cardiovascular disease, dementia, diabetes. You don't die of it. So there's many
It
things
leads to death.
Yeah. And I understand that you can be saying things, I've said, you can make honest mistakes. I get that. But if you're just going on and going on, there's just so much, like tens of thousands of hours of you just spitting things that are just not true or so wild. And then that they're marketing something to make money. That's what I don't like. And I'll tell you why. My mother is, she's in her late 60s. She rings me up. She doesn't have a science background. She rings me up. She's like, I heard this guy on YouTube. He told me I should be doing this. Should I take this supplement? It's like, what? Just like wild things, because she doesn't know that. And imagine there's billions of people watching these guys who are going really viral and they're spreading messages that are just actually harmful.
Why do you think, though, that, because I see this happen in the health space all the time.
Yeah.
Workouts, food, just whatever, right? And so the extreme people always have the counter to whatever, right? And so it's just like, and I see it in the comments of every single video. It doesn't matter who it is. And I'm sure you've made videos and people are like, she's an idiot.
Yeah.
She don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
This is the other thing that she's not telling you.
Yeah.
Like how it all goes back to, I guess, who do you know who to believe?
I'll tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
You have to go on this really incredible website. It's called PubMed, PubMed. It is a database where it has scientific articles that have been either peer-reviewed, that have been done in either on rats. You can find some that have been done in humans.
Okay.
You can read the data for yourself. There's more to it than that. You can't just go and see a human randomized control trial and think that's the be all and end all. You have to know how to read scientific literature. But if you see somebody speaking about something outrageous, just go online, type into PubMed, maybe type out the question, figure out how to use PubMed first and foremost. You'll see the data for itself. You can't base things off without having a clinical practice or without having randomized control trials done on humans, because that means that it's just not warranted. There's no data to back up what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I turn. I have a team that, regularly looks at data. That's all they're responsible for, looking at human randomized control trials, figuring out, did this trial have a marketing incentive? Like, was it funded by Pepsi? Okay,
exactly.
first and foremost, if it wasn't and it was done in a true lab and we've got true data from it, then we can probably pull that maybe this works, right?
But even still, that would be on PubMed, right? Like
exactly
the Pepsi funded thing.
There you go. They have to document it. So that's how you really know. And that's why when people fight with me, people fight with me anytime I put up something about marijuana, saying how detrimental it is, because it is. It is back. I'm not just saying that because, hey, I just don't like it, so I'm just going to put it out there. Nothing I say on social media doesn't have something in the background to back it up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not putting it out there for, I genuinely hate that alcohol is so bad and that it's a toxin for you. A hangover is literally a toxin-induced state.
Yeah.
I would love to go and sit on a winery and sip on wine, but it's just not healthy.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
What do you think about vaccines?
Not my area. I was vaccinated though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that one brings out the worst in people.
That brings out the most controversial standpoints. I'm so happy that that's not my field. I genuinely don't talk about things that I don't know too much about or researched. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am vaccinated against COVID and
it's crazy. Just like, well, and here's the other part about social media too that makes it tough is, for instance, I am not an expert on anything health related other than, I guess, as an athlete, I could tell you what workouts you should do, even though I'm not a certified physical trainer guy. I would probably know more than most physical trainers just based on real experience.
Exactly.
But the problem is, like, I could tell you my own experience with peptides in this. I couldn't tell you how a peptide is made. I know it's like an amino acid. That's about all I know. And all I can just be like is like, well, I took it and this is what happened and I feel great. But I don't know the side effects. I don't know like the long-term effects. I don't know any of that stuff, but I can tell you for me, I like it. I know there's always pros and cons with everything you do. And for me, it's like, well, the pros outweigh the cons of whatever.
And that's the difference between a good practitioner and a bad practitioner. Good practitioner is going to know the human because that's what you do. Everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way, just even based on your genetic makeup and, you know, blood work, all of that, everything's different. But behavior is a huge predictor of health as well. You know, if you're going to stick to a certain protocol, for example, will dictate, you know, if you get an outcome from that. So everyone is different, and a good practitioner will know how to work with the individual and also base it on the clinical data as well. You know, statins, for example, you know, lowering cholesterol, et cetera. That's going to be good as well. But what if they could adhere to something else? You got to know who the person is.
Yeah. One thing I've learned about just my medical journey, not for myself, but actually for my son, because we knew he had special needs, but we could never diagnose what it was. And so like, he's about to be 5 and, you know, we've went to many doctors, like normal doctors, functional doctors, everything. And like even the school system and like the things they make them go through to, you know, just diagnose them for however they're going to see fit. Right. And the one thing that's become clear to me is I think the medical field is very much like a business. I mean, they are businesses, number one, but they're businesses in the fact that we don't really know what's going to work. Like you're just taking your best guess based on your experience, your track record, things you've seen. And you're like, look, I think this is what you have going on. We can do these tests to find out if that's true or not. And, you know, whatever. And then we're going to give you the protocol we think will like give you the best chance of whatever.
Yeah. Well, the protocol based on obviously that, you know, there are laws in place for specific things. But this is, you know, another reason why, you know, the whole psychiatry field is crazy because like I just found out that in 2020, New York State actually went through a statewide shortage of Prozac, for example, which is an SSRI, you know, used to treat symptoms of depression and anxiety. And that's just something that is just widely now distributed. Oh, you don't feel well? I'm just, you know,
here you go.
Yeah, here you go. It's a Prozac. Oh, I think your kid has ADHD. Here's the Ritalin. So it's a tough field. But there are, you know, definitely laws. You know, if you see that on MRI, you see this on EEG, you see this in blood work, you have to obviously flag that and do what's necessary. But you're right. At the end of the day, what's quite scary, look, my grandmother and my auntie, you know, we lost them to pancreatic cancer. Something that is like, they were symptom free until they had it. And then 2 weeks later, we lost them. And it's a really scary thing to happen. I just, you know, this is why I've got good faith. I'm a Christian. I'm Greek Orthodox. You know, there's so many scientists who are, you know, they're like, oh, why do you believe in God if you're a scientist? It's like, that is my faith. I'm very much religious. Yeah. As well as being a scientist.
Yeah. So tell me about that as a Christian. For me, I'm Christian. And yeah, like Christian and science always go head to head. In whatever, right? And then I've even looked very in depth about all these different scientific things that whether you're talking about the age of the world, whether you're talking about when people talk about the Big Bang Theory and all this stuff, right? And there's always a scientific, I guess, like explanation for, the biblical story of how things happen too. That being said, how much of faith plays into how you, I guess, go into like a situation or like a study or like looking for answers? Do you go through that lens of like, hey, this is what I believe, so therefore I'm going to look for answers this way? How do you do it?
No. What I think of is it would be very hard to not believe, this is my opinion, in God when you really understand how we are made as humans. If you understand the intricacies of the nervous system, this is coming from someone who's seen it in the flesh and also studied it and seeing how it's formed to, we're different to every other creature in the world. This is why we're the smartest. Just knowing that there's surely got to be something else out there that has helped with the makeup of who we are, as unscientific as that might be. I just think that the deeper you get into science, the deeper you understand from the neural tube, which is literally how we start. We start as a tube, 5 weeks. And you see this neural tube, and then we start to get branching off of that tube, which ends up going into the cortex and so on and so forth. But when you see the development of that into who we are today, you just realize that, God, there's definitely something bigger out there than just biology itself.
Yeah. I was watching something with Andrew Huberman the other day, and he was talking about that, and he was like, yeah, I don't think he's, I don't know if he claims to be a Christian yet, but he's like, hey, like God's out there. Like that's what I believe now. He's like,
Yeah.
I pray now. I feel so much better than when I wasn't, and all of these things. And
look, it's been I don't go to church every weekend. But anybody who's out there and is Greek Orthodox, we're big on our faith, especially around Easter time. It's probably one of the biggest religious holidays that we have. And it's something that I turn to as well when all else fails. Mm-hmm. When you need to pull at something, that's generally what I'm pulling for.
Now because, we talked about the first 3 pillars, and then you said, well, there's kind of a 4th one, which is community and fellowship, which for me is obviously a huge part of faith, having fellowship with other believers and everything. So would you say then that there is this spiritual element of health that, maybe, there are people like scientifically who will say, well, yeah, like look at the energy and everything like happening that you cannot explain, like it is there.
Yeah. I looked into that whole spiritual thing because it's like I went through this period where I just think about somebody and I haven't spoken to them in like 5 years, and then they'll text me. I'll be like, what's that about? And it would drive me insane. It was, I'm talking like it happens to me. I don't know if that happens to you. And I think that that's weird. And this whole spiritual aligning around that, I'm starting to learn more about that. But in terms of community, it is nice to be, look, community can mean everything. It doesn't mean to be religious. We have in New York a really nice community of runners. I love running. It was my favorite leg of a triathlon. That's a community. We believe the same things. We're around. It's camaraderie. We have fun. We all ice bath together. It's a fun thing to do when you're with a group of people who's providing friendship, laughter, talking to the same as what you speak, like believing in the same thing. That's a community, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same as faith, and when I meet somebody who's who's Greek or Greek Orthodox, and we just know, we're like, okay, great, we've got that. So it's a community. It's the same as having a best friend. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. So what's the final thing you think people need to know?
First of all, you can't get past sleep, good sleep, exercise, proper nutrition. Having somebody who is by your side throughout life is going to be a really strong predictor of health. Get off the internet for a few hours a day, get out, get natural sunlight, and make sure that you're talking with a reputable practitioner. I don't care if you're going to a personal trainer even. Make sure that they know what they're talking about as well.
I love it. And where can people find out more about working with you?
You can go to Louisa Nicola on Instagram. Everything is linked there. You can email us at info@neuroathletics.com.au.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link to all that down below, guys. You guys can work with Louisa and get optimal health. You work with people nationwide?
Nationwide.
Okay.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that we do at Neuroathletics is we have a 6-week signature course for coaches and practitioners where we teach them the fundamentals of human performance, everything I outlined today, so they can get their clients performing.
So
at the
coaches can
elite.
get like certified with you
Correct.
guys.
Yeah.
And then normal people can go just get linked up with you guys and
we can
do all
work
the
with them.
testing,
Correct.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've realized too. It's like we measure all this stuff in business and KPIs, and I just wasn't doing that with my health. I'm just like looking at the scale
Yeah.
and that's the measurement, but it's like your blood and all that's telling you the truth.
Yeah. The truth. That's right.
Yeah. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you're subscribed and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
The common denominator for success that I see for these patients is their health. You show me your habits, you show me what you're doing, I could tell you where you are in the spectrum of entrepreneurship. The best of the best outgrow the chaos. The best of the